I always love to start with that curiosity. I'm a huge believer in pilots, huge believers in test runs, listening, because, sometimes we're wrong. Sometimes we may have this preconceived notion of exactly what it's going to be. Persuasion's about the journey with people.
If I want to be more persuasive, I've got to go on a listening tour. When I'm going on a listening tour, I'm suspending my own state of panic or anxiety to understand what people are really seeing and thinking.
It isn't about being liked. In those moments. You don't have to like that person. They don't have to like you. You don't have to have that on the table to partner. I was partnering with another leader who had a radically different view on how to lead than I do. This individual was really about, we have to control all variables. We have to have a hard line. My first instinct was, we must eradicate this now. I'm scared now. And it was like, hold on, patience, slow down. Where's that coming from? And I got into that understanding with this individual to try to go, why are you seeing it this way?
So I'm going to ask, I want to be more assertive. I don't want to be seen as a pushover. I don't want to be a dictator either. How do you coach someone to be better on the assertive front without tipping into that obnoxious territory?
I love that you're framing that too, because sometimes that is how I'm asked that in a session or a workshop or in a consulting. That's hard to play. It's not about not doing something. It's quite the opposite. It's quite active. What you can do is
there is no growth in comfort and no comfort in growth. Yet the big leaps are how careers are made and how businesses excel. So how do you master not knowing at all or feeling like an imposter? How do you have the conversations that lead to trust and, of course, excellence? How do you take charge of the things that you can control? How do you thrive outside your comfort zone? That's what this podcast is about. I'm your host, Wanda Wallace, and it's time to get out of your comfort zone. Welcome to the conversation. Today we're talking about communication, and I'm going to argue that communication is absolutely everything in business. Getting people to understand, to change, to see an opportunity, to see what you see, to buy into your approach, to buy into you for that matter, it's everything. The more effective you are at communication, the more successful you're going to be as a leader. In fact, sometimes I think we often confuse the words leadership and communication. So when I go in to coach someone and we say, what's the problem with their leadership? Communication, which means 101 things. Now, the good news is you don't have to be born as a brilliant communicator. All the skills are absolutely, totally learnable, contrary to popular fears. So we're going to talk about what you need to know and what do you need to do to be phenomenally persuasive. And my guest today is Jennifer Logue. She's a seasoned communication strategist with over 2 decades of experience equipping people with the skills to communicate assertively with positive impact, gravitas, and emotional intelligence. I love that combination there. Huge diverse background between law, finance, technology, energy, and acting. And she's honed her skills as a keynote speaker, workshop facilitator, executive coach. I should say she's worked with some of the big companies around the world in banking, like JP Morgan and BlackRock, some work in legal, some work at Citibank, some work at Rockwell Group. The list could go Pfizer. She's worked across the industries in many, many ways. So Jennifer, welcome to the conversation.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me, Wanda.
It's a pleasure.
You made me sound great.
I think you are great. So, okay. So I want to start with my biggest question, which is about persuasion. Some of the trickiest conversations that I find people have to have really involve persuading people. So persuading people to try my idea, to give me funding, to join me on a project, to think that this thing is worthwhile, or sometimes it's a persuasion to change. So what do you do with people to help them increase their hit rate on being persuasive?
I love that. What do you do with people? It's so true. We have to have them in order to partner around those projects or ideas. I love this question. I'm currently partnering with an amazing client right now around, it's about a 580 person mentorship program. And it was so interesting because it reminded me of you, Wanda, asking me this question around, I had an idea. I had a design concept I really thought would work. It was very well defined. And it was interesting because they weren't quite on board yet when we started talking and partnering with them. And I went at it, which is what I would tell any client I'm consulting. Let's start with curiosity first, and then we'll go on the journey together. And what I meant by that was interesting because what we decided to do was let's do focus groups. Let's do a listening tour first of all levels that would be involved in this mentorship program, including all the way up to the highest person in this particular org, to really uncover, why do we need this mentorship program? Why do we need it right now? What does it have to do with the strategy that we also were able to partner with them on? And it was so interesting, by going on that curiosity tour first, we uncovered risks and opportunities that none of us had even thought about. And therefore, then we started to put it into the design so that by the time we're here in the rollout, not only is everybody buying into the idea, it's because they were the idea. They were a part of it. So I always love to start with that curiosity. I'm a huge believer in pilots, huge believers in test runs, listening, because, you know, sometimes we're wrong. Sometimes we may have this preconceived notion of exactly what it's going to be. Persuasion's about the journey with people.
I love that curiosity. So I have two comments on it. One is sometimes we want to try to persuade the biggest naysayers. And I'm going to steal a page from Greg Seitel that says, if you can't persuade your biggest supporters, then you might as well give up and start over again because it's not going to work. So in some ways, starting with people who are supportive and then listening is easier. So that's my one comment. My second comment, though, I have seen way too many times people go through the motions of this big, massive listening tour. And it doesn't feel like anything came out of that. Like, yeah, we had some good words. We had some nice PowerPoint slides. It said all the right things, but you can't see yourself, your ideas showing up in the action plan. So how do you keep people from doing the motions and not actually listening?
Sometimes it is, isn't it, about social proof, isn't it, Wanda, where you say, okay, who is the most influential? Who's got the backs of everybody here? Who's got the ability to say, okay, I may not trust this outside consultant, but I trust them. And so sometimes it's about amplification, where you say, okay, let me make sure I get that person on board. Again, through things that seem obvious, data, facts, the logic of it, and they also help you partner with it. I find that works particularly with what I find, and it's fair. Because the other thing you have to do too is sometimes those naysayers have good reasons. Usually it's the people with the budget, and I get it. Usually that's what I find. They're like, Jen, how do we put all this money into this program when we're not able to maybe promote people, or we have to hire? What are we going to do? And so by, again, letting them also come on the journey, but also you've got the people who have the trust, I find that also works really well too.
Right. Yeah, I totally agree with you that it's really critical if I'm trying to persuade somebody that I have people they want to listen to who are now bought in. So I have to be quite strategic in where I start and who I bring in at any given moment in time in order to be persuasive. But I want to go back to this curiosity. It is so easy to say the words curiosity.
Yeah.
It is extremely difficult to do. Okay, so in truth, I've done all this work. I have this whole proposal and program. I know in my soul this is going to make a massive difference. People want it. Yes, there's some naysayers. We have to watch the budget. Okay, I got it. I'm on board. And then somebody tells me something I don't want to hear. And it's nice if you hear the listening at the very, very beginning. I agree. But, you know, we all get sold on the idea before we ever take it public. How do you get yourself to the place where you really listen and take it on board?
I relate to you so much, Wanda. I so relate. I am often ahead of the game, not because I'm some kind of smart person or anything. I think it may have come out of an interesting place. When I was a little girl, and my mom has this story about me. I was watching a movie. I think it was some terrorizing movie that Gen X made. I'm Gen X. They do this, like, watch Old Yeller or something. It's dramatic, and we're watching it. And I remember I shouted out in a dark theater, "Mom, what's going to happen?" And I'm often ahead of it. And that's when if somebody's fundamentally disagreeing with me, sometimes slowing down, and it doesn't mean you have to give up what you want. It doesn't mean that you have to agree with them, but sometimes slowing down with them and saying, okay, let me get just curious with you. Let me not try to fix you, bring you over to my side. What if we really dove into this? What are you afraid of? What do you think could happen? What would be a better alternative? You do sometimes find you're surprised. Sometimes I am wrong. Sometimes that is unfortunate.
No.
Don't tell anybody, Wanda. Sometimes I'm wrong. And so being willing to say, okay, before we get to, sometimes it means a boundary, doesn't it, Wanda? Sometimes we have to walk away. It's not the right price. It's not the right vision. It's not aligned with our values. But sometimes it is sitting with the discomfort a bit and saying, we're not against each other. Let me put my arm around you and go, actually, we're trying to influence something out here as opposed to adversarially. Let's try to get there together. And again, that's where curiosity is hard, is when you disagree. And to be okay that it isn't about the you're right, I'm wrong. It's about what's the challenge we're trying to influence together.
Okay. I agree with you completely, because I think it's so easy to say the words, to be curious, to be open, to listen. It's extremely difficult to do. Time pressured. I got to get this done. I need to move it. Presentation is already set up 2 weeks from now. I can't change it. Yep. There's all those pressures that come in that make it so difficult to listen.
Yes.
And at the same time, if you don't listen, you're going to get stuck. So you might as well slow down. Yes, what's going to happen? I love that, Jennifer.
What's going to happen, Wanda? Yeah, slowing down and enjoying the movie till you know.
Yeah. I find one thing in particular, and I want your reaction to this one, is that leaving people feeling that you heard them, that you understood their point of view, even if you don't agree with it. They feel that you heard it means they stop beating that same old poor horse.
Yeah.
Because if they don't feel like you heard, they double down on it. And then they're not open to move at all.
Very much so. It was interesting. I was partnering with another leader recently who had I'm talking radically different view on how to lead than I do. And it was a little intense there. This individual, I understood why through this process. This individual was really about, we have to control all variables. We have to have a hard line. We have to come down really strongly on people right away. And a lot of it, I think, was coming out of fear. I didn't know that at the time. I was only seeing the impact and how fundamentally different it was with me. And it's interesting you just said that, Wanda, because my first instinct was, we must eradicate this now. I'm scared now. And it was like, hold on. Again, patience, slow down. Where's that coming from? And I got into that understanding with this individual to try to go, why are you seeing it this way? And potentially also, I don't think this individual realized the impact. They thought they were solving for the big problem, not realizing they may have been creating more too. And through that listening, as you just said, and understanding and questioning, we did get to a different place in that case. Not always the case, but we did get into a different place in this one.
I have said for decades that when you understand what somebody fears, you understand how to interact with them. And I don't mean that as a manipulative, now let me make you more fearful to get you to do something, because I don't think people act out of fear unless they're like, it's death or some other dire circumstances. But when I understand what somebody's afraid of, then I understand how to talk to them. I understand how to alleviate those fears. I understand how to mitigate and manage that risk. And I just think that's a really, really important thing. Jennifer, I also find sometimes that people actually, what I think they meant, what I think they're worried about isn't really what they're talking. The words sound right, but when you dig underneath it, it's like, oh, that's the problem? Well, wait, that's a simple solution here. You find the same.
I do. I was working with, he's slowly becoming one of my favorites. I know everybody's going to be like, you have favorites? I probably should have said that. But I'm slowly becoming one of my favorites. He's ex-military and I adore him. He is got such a huge heart, and because of his background, I think people may have been misunderstanding him, that in his experience, if things had a mistake or things didn't work out, there was dire consequences. Now he's in regular old corporate America there, bless him. And it's like, but I'm still operating with this intention of it's life or death. And therefore that impact he was creating, people didn't understand. They exactly like you're saying, when they're like, why is this such a big deal? Why are they so intense? And then when you unpack that onion, and also he was able to unpack as well, oh, my intention is not aligning with my behavior. Yes, it can be important. It may not be life or death anymore, how are you getting there? And him realizing that intention and behavior didn't quite add up was a really aha moment in our sessions together. And I really appreciated he went there, because just as you said, it's like people most of the time eyebrow raised, what's the deal? What's going on here? You got to let people into, this is why my behavior is the way it is. How is it impacting? Where do we want to go? Because yeah, the intention usually doesn't align with the impact.
Or our interpretation of the intention.
Correct.
I think our interpretation of it. Yeah. If I had to point out two things that I think cause the biggest interpersonal conflict, it's my interpretation of your intention. 90% of the time I'm wrong. And two, my style. As simple as I'm very verbal or I'm not very verbal. I'm very detail oriented. I'm big picture oriented. Just those two things alone could solve a huge amount. All right. So Jennifer, I've heard from you the following. If I want to be more persuasive, I've got to go on a listening tour. Mm-hmm. When I'm going on a listening tour, I'm suspending my own state of panic or anxiety to understand what people are really seeing and thinking. And I am looking for three things, I believe you said. The other person's real intention, not my interpretation, the other person's fears or concerns, and the other person's ideas that me might want to incorporate. Did I get that right?
Nailed it. Beautifully said.
Okay, so let's go. Are there any other elements you would want to add in terms of how to be persuasive?
This is an interesting one, probably a little controversial, and I think I mentioned it a second ago. It is okay to walk away. It's okay to set boundaries. It's okay to go, is the cost too high? If the listening tour, they don't come around to a potential value, as I mentioned, or something you can't give up, some need, it's okay to walk away. It's okay to have boundaries.
Yeah, I have a CEO who's one of my all-time favorites. I have favorites too, Jennifer, but when everybody asks me, I'll say, I was just talking about you, so never give it away.
Absolutely.
But at any rate, he talks about this lesson that he learned from a former CEO that had been a great mentor to him, and he would come in with this great idea, and his boss would say, no. And you're like, why? Wait, it's a great idea. And the boss would say, that goes in the too hard bucket. It's not that it's wrong. It's not that we would never do it. But right now, it's too hard to implement, too hard to sell, too hard to get the budget, too hard to get the attention to, too hard. In the bucket. Later, maybe. It's a great framing, because it's not a hard no. It's a not now no.
Yes. I love a yes if. Yes, we can do that if we look at this later at a different time because it's too hard right now. And it's okay. No, because here's the reason. And that's a complete sentence.
Okay. All right. Let's talk about this whole notion of sometimes, darn it, the person I need most to break an idea through is somebody I just flat out don't like.
Yes.
Okay. And it might be that we've crossed paths. It might be we have a different style. It might be that we have competing alternatives. It might be there's competition. It might be any number of things of either of our doing or just circumstances. But we're not getting along very well. And we all have those. All of us have those. What's your advice under those circumstances? What do we do now?
It's so interesting. This is a million years ago now, Wanda. I cut my teeth a bit on business in New York City I managed nightclubs and bars for some pretty amazing Irishmen. There was an interesting, I often say that's where I got my MBA, of learning, just as you're saying, that in that particular environment, people are not always their best in a bar environment.
Not really.
As you said, when at 2 a.m., you're not going to really like the person you're trying to persuade to get out of the area. Or as I meant, I've stand-up comic for many years, still a comedian, love it. Sometimes they don't like it. Sometimes they're like, I want to laugh. They're like, you better make me laugh. And I learned probably through that and brought it into my business techniques when I'm consulting and coaching. It isn't about being liked. In those moments. You don't have to have the other person. You don't have to like that person. They don't have to like you. You don't have to have that on the table to partner. Or you walk away. It's 2 a.m.
You walk away.
Yeah, being liked isn't the goal, right, Wanda? Sometimes it's getting into the real outcome of whatever that may be that you're trying to unite with them around, and being liked doesn't have to be on the table.
You're reminding me of Adam Cahane's work. How do you collaborate with the enemy? And when he does that collaboration, he literally means somebody who has tried to kill you last week. I mean, that's the nature of his work on a social governmental scale. But he talks about the need to identify something we both want to see happen. We both have a common goal. You said that at the very beginning. We have common values.
Yep.
John Ott, who does a lot of social transformation work and has been on the show as well, also says the same thing, is that it's really hard to get people to come together to solve a big, difficult problem until we're in agreement that there's a problem we both want to solve.
That's right. I mean, nobody said it better. Stephen Covey, I know, a million years ago, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I still think he's right. His lovely quote of start with the end in mind. That also, I was talking about, instead of, and this happens a lot, especially if the not being liked vis-a-vis is up, you tend to kind of come at it like, my guy gotta. And again, it's like, how about we not even put that on the table? Because we're going to have to discuss the outcome anyway. How about we take it off the table and go straight to that, where we start fine tuning, where do we want to go, even if we don't have control over it. Let's start there. That happened actually recently. I was coaching another pretty amazing individual. And she was like, I need you to help me explain to this guy why he's wrong and why I am doing my job. I was like, is that the meeting you want to have? Is that the meeting he wants to have? It's like, oh, actually, no, we want to get to, we're trying to sell this client this really great deal. And I was like, let's have that meeting. So doesn't about being liked. Let's do business.
So in that case, you get this person to focus on, we're both trying to drive this business for this client in the following way. Agreed. And the other person may say, not quite that way, in this way, or I want this and that piece of business. I want to set it up so we do this over the long run. We get to some notion of what an end state might be that we both agree with. The problem I find is that most people, when they say start with the end in mind, in the Stephen Covey language, they think about what I want to do as the end.
Right.
As opposed to the outcome.
The real outcome.
We want to achieve.
Yeah. That's actually very interesting you say that, because I also heavily work, you mentioned, I have heavy analytical fields, a lot of engineers, I would say. And yeah, they're so interesting about this step by step, where they want to go is like where I want to go. And you're not wrong, one. There is an ideation process about what does good look like first.
Yes.
All agree on that before we jump in together.
Right. Well, and some people need that. Engineers are an example that comes to mind, but there are plenty of others that need to know that there's a consistent roadmap with time to think along the way. As one of my dear engineering friends says, when you're working with electrical, stuff goes wrong. It goes badly wrong. You want to be slow. You don't want to go fast. Okay, all right, I respect that. You're right. So we have to have that roadmap, but we don't have to start with debating step one of the roadmap.
That's right. That's right.
Okay.
Where we want is a specific outcome that is we, not just I. Absolutely.
Let's go so we've talked about adversaries. I don't have to become friends. It's okay to know that we're competitors and we're going to continue to be competitors, and you're not going to be my first choice if I get to choose, but okay, we both want to get to a particular outcome and we can figure out how to get there without having to be the best of friends. I think that's a secret sauce along the way. All right, I want to go to a thornier one. Well, maybe I think it's thornier. And that is when I'm trying to be assertive with somebody else, okay? This is part of your intro. You're a specialist at this. So I'm going to ask, I want to be more assertive. I don't want to be seen as a pushover. I don't want to be a dictator either. But how do you coach someone to be better on the assertive front without tipping into that obnoxious territory?
I love that you're talking the way you're framing that too, because sometimes that is how I'm asked that in a session or a workshop or I'm consulting. There's a lot of I don't want to X. I don't want to Y. That's hard to play. And that's, again, we're going to have to deal with my old acting background. I had some of the best acting teachers ever. And they're like, Jennifer, you can't go on stage and not do something. It would be boring for me and the audience if I just stood there and not doing something. It is like that. And granted, I have this acting background. I have the MFA was all about script analysis and how do you communicate to make this scene exciting. Well, it's all based on human behavior. And that's what's interesting is you can't not do something. I know that's a really weird sentence.
Okay.
What you can do is decide what you do want to do. Okay. What is the value you're adding that you want to be assertive about, that's worth being assertive about? To your point, Wanda, does it just have to do with you or does it have to do with everybody else in the room too? What's the we factor in the outcome you're trying to influence? Because it's not about, we have to challenge ourselves a little bit on that feedback of be more assertive. What does that even mean? Because my assertive may look so different than yours, Wanda, even though the definition is assertive at the end of the day. So you do have to go, what's your version of that? What do you have to say? What's the value you want to add? And pushing yourself through what I call the butt clenching moment to say it. And do it. And so it's not about not doing something. It's quite the opposite. It's quite active. What are you influencing, persuading? Listening could be that. Again, it'll have to do with the outcome of what you're wanting to be assertive about. And it may look different in your body language and voice the way we all do it, but it's challenging yourself to do it. Have the conversation. Have the tough meeting. Have it. Yeah,
say the tough sentence. And it's usually just a sentence. It's not a whole long thing. It's just a sentence. It reminds me, someone that I coached years ago who had gotten the feedback that she, in this case, was too nice. And she wanted to not be too nice. Okay, so to your point, how do you not be nice? Well, you don't want to be mean either. So what does that mean, not nice? And she came to the conclusion that it meant that she would challenge.
There's active.
When she needed to challenge. It took 6 months to get her to the place where she recognized that what too nice meant that bothered her was that she was hesitating to challenge when she needed to challenge.
Isn't that interesting? That's what I find fascinating about it when people come to me and I'm told I need to be assertive. I'm like, let's break it down. What does that mean? I love that that's what it, and it does. I want to give everybody a break on this because I have to be honest. I think mainly what I'm coaching on this year, a huge part of it is conflict resolution, difficult conversations, how to assert. It's huge right now. It's hard. Like I said, it's butt clenching. And it may take 6 months for your butt to unclench and the practice and role play it with your coach or whoever. That's okay for some of us who have that tendency of it. It's scary, but be afraid and do it anyway.
I think this is true for most of the feedback I hear. That I get called in to coach people on. It's very ambiguous feedback, like improve your executive presence or be more assertive or be more strategic. Like those are all descriptive terms. They don't tell me a thing about what I do or stop doing.
That's right.
Like I don't know. And you have to go on an investigative journey to figure out what is it that person is seeing me do or hearing me say that's leading to that conclusion. And then what do I want to do about it?
Yes, because you're so right. It was interesting. Somebody, I remember they asked me to come in and they wanted presentation skills. And I got in there and started working with their team. And I realized actually they just need to learn how to run a better meeting. They need an agenda. They were fine at presenting. It's just they didn't have one. And so it sort of derailed these and wasted everyone's time. It's so interesting, isn't it, Wanda? You think you're coaching one thing, but actually when you unpeel it, it's this other behavior we're trying to uncover.
85% of the time, I would say, the thing I get called on is not what the issue really is. It's something underneath it. But then again, if it was obvious at the front, I think people wouldn't have called me. They would have figured it out themselves.
It's so true.
Okay. Keep calling.
Yes, absolutely. We're here to unpeel the onion with you. That's the whole point.
All right. I love this statement. Focusing on, when you're working with somebody, focusing on what your value is that you stand by, what it is, the outcome that you're trying to, because I think when you're saying, look, here's the thing I want to achieve, or here's what I care about, or I care that I don't always lose to you on every single issue, as an example, as a perfectly okay thing to say. I might not want to say that to the person directly. I might want to say, I don't want to lose on this one. Mm-hmm. for example. So, and then have the courage to say it. But it takes a little bit of self-work to understand what is it that's causing that tension, and what is it that's worthy of me standing my ground for. Okay. Throughout everything that you've talked about empathy. I'm going to do the same question in a slightly different way. That being able to understand where somebody is coming from, that emotional intelligence is a core part. And sometimes it's obvious, and sometimes it's not so easy to read where they're coming from and what they're really afraid of, and so on. But what else? I've listened. I've heard the idea. I think I know what you're worried about, but you're just wrong. Yeah. Period. Flat out wrong. Yeah. Now what do I do? How do I deal with that one in the context of being persuasive?
Yes, it's so interesting. Wanda, you and I are so much alike. Like, that person's just wrong. And you sort of want to take out like an ad in the paper. Remember that time you were wrong? Here's a flip chart on why here's a detailed explanation of you're wrong. One of it, I have to set my ego aside sometimes. First, I have to check myself. And then again, I'm going to age myself. I have to check myself before I wreck myself, to quote on rap song. Am I right? Let's get curious with me first, because sometimes I'm so sure of it because usually a value system is driving that. There's some, especially justice with me. If there's justice values in there and I feel like an injustice is happening, I really have to go, stop. Are you right? And then it's just that lovely advice I gave before, which is, what's the cost of telling them I'm right? What am I going to get out of it? What are they going to get out of it? And if the answer is they need to know that, that's the answer. Typically, though, I find, again, that's not what I want the conversation to be about. I want this client to pay me on time is what the conversation's about. I don't need to go down all the different ways they didn't do that here's the outcome. Can we get there together? Or is it a difficult conversation about somebody wasn't happy with a design that I made? Great. That's actually good feedback. Tell me I'm wrong, because sometimes, Wanda, does this person have a different strength or skill set than I do? Because I'm bringing a strength, they could be bringing a strength. And if I do see it in their way, could that make a really great whole? And then finally, Wanda, it's okay that if the cost is too high, if your core values are being trumped on, let them be wrong and set a boundary. You don't have to win.
In all of this, yes, you do. Wait a minute. Hold on.
Dang it. Because we can't control it, can we, Wanda? Yeah. I'm in a situation right now where I really want somebody to see it my way because the cost is high. The impact of their behavior is high. And what I have to really decide is, are they going to change? Do we think human beings are going to change unless it's their idea? Will that happen? Or am I going in to set that boundary, or am I going in to partner because you can't change them? You can't change as right. Much as we want them to see it our way, as much as we want to be right in this situation, we have to really take a step back to go, what's the ideal outcome? And I can only control me. And I can only control my reaction and behavior to it.
Totally. So we're right back to that whole, there's a little bit of work I have to do before I have any of these persuasive conversations. One is, what is the outcome I'm trying to get to? What do I really care about in this outcome? Not the pathway, the outcome itself. And two, what are my values are hooked in this situation? Because usually they are. And when there's conflict, there's usually a value kind of disconnect. Yes. That doesn't make the other person's values bad. It just makes them different priorities, different set of good things. And if I can understand what my values are, what has been hooked in particular, then I got a better shot of saying, what do I really care about? Like, what's the conversation what do I want to get to here? And occasionally that may be to say, no, unless we can do this way, I don't want to do it with you. Mm-hmm. That might be the case. Or occasionally it might be to say, okay, I can do this so long as I get this much of what it is I'm trying to achieve. Or there's variations on a theme.
That's it. What is know when to hold them, know when to fold them.
Indeed. It's interesting, Jennifer, isn't it? We start with this from a communications specialist who comes in to coach people on their communications and on their presentation and on their, how they show up on stage, literally.
Yeah.
And you end up with all of this intense behind the scenes interpersonal work in order to get ready for the conversation.
It is. And that's why I geek out about what I do. Again, what's going to happen? It's still in me as a little girl. I love going on a journey with someone. Wanda, you'd mentioned that individual that took 6 months to get there. The fact we get to walk with people that are brave enough to go, I'm going to do something scary and look at my behavior. Look at what's driving it. Is it holding me back? The fact that we get to build trust with people and we get to essentially walk along to go, try this, try this. Let me ask some questions. Let me be a mirror to you. Let me give you some clarity. The fact that we get to do that is so exciting because people who are willing to do it are some of the coolest people I know.
Makes for a much more interesting colleague, for sure. Yeah. I also think for better business results at the end of the day.
Which is what it's about. Absolutely.
Jennifer, last couple of minutes. If you could give everybody set pieces of advice, 3, 4, 5, I don't care how many, about their presentation, their stage presence, if you will, what would you tell them to focus on?
Well, phenomenal speaking is actually heavily inspired Maya Angelou's Phenomenal Woman poem. I adore her. So she's phenomenal. I named my company after it. She's famous for a quote that said, people will forget what you've said, people will forget what you've done, but they won't forget how you made them feel. Mm-hmm. If you can walk into any communication, make sure you put your bottom line on top, you got purpose, and you affect people on a feeling level. Maybe you tell a story about why you want them to get where you're going and that bottom line on top. Maybe you use sensory language or imagery. Maybe you just simply use great techniques like body language and looking at them in the eye or standing up straight. If you can affect them on a feeling level, they will do and influence and persuade where you want them to go. And so don't forget exactly what you're saying, Wanda. We're all about them KPIs. We're all about that business outcome. But what gets you there is the feelings. It's the interpersonal. It's the connection. And don't forget, it's equally as important as the analytical part.
I love that. I don't believe it's possible to persuade somebody to do what I want them to do if I am fundamentally conveying to them with body language, with my words or so on, that I think they're rubbish.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, why would you?
Yeah, why don't, it comes down to trust. This comes from my comedic and improv background. Before we go on stage together and do something difficult, like be in front of an audience, be vulnerable and try to make them laugh, which is really hard actually, we look at each other in the eye and literally put our hand on the shoulder and go, hey, I got your back out there. And can you imagine on that feeling level of whatever version of that is in a business context, you're about to go into that difficult client pitch or have that difficult conversation and one of your colleagues looks at you and says, hey, Wanda, I got your back in there. You will remember that forever. That impact is forever. And the fact that that trust is there. So I know it feels different when you're like, but Jen, I'm just giving an update. You're not just giving an update. You're trying to have their back and affect them on a level that makes that update make sense so that you can keep getting business done every day.
I love it. Impact them or have how would you affect them on a feeling level is what I think you said. I love that one.
Have their back. Yeah.
Have their back. All right, Jen, so many good things on this one. This notion of listening for people's intention, for what they're afraid of or concerned about, what their ideas are. Focus on the values that you have in common or the outcome that you want. Be clear with your own self about what it is your values have been touched and where you're willing to walk away. As you said, it's okay to walk away. And then it's affect people on that emotional feeling sort of level. Jen, if somebody wanted to get in touch with you, where's the best way to find you?
You can find me at my website, phenomenalspeaking.com. You can find me on there. You can find me on LinkedIn with Phenomenal Speaking, as well as my handle on there, Jennifer Logue, as well. And yeah, those are all the places you can find me. And Jennifer at phenomenalspeaking.com. Just good old-fashioned email. Jennifer at phenomenalspeaking.com. Yes.
All right. Fantastic. Jennifer, what a great conversation. I've loved it. It's been great. Phenomenalspeaking.com. And thank you. Thank you very much for being with us. And join us next week for more tactics in getting out of your comfort zone. Until then.